believe we have on the phone Lee Livesay. Lee had a top 40 finish, finished 36 with 28.9 at Sam Rayburn this past weekend. And Lee, what we want to we just got Josh Douglas' perspective here as to the deep water bite and how that worked for him. Of course, we talked to Albert Collins on the show a couple of weeks ago, and Albert predicted it's going to be guys that can fish both deep and shallow that probably going to take a mixed bag of deep and shallow because of the way the lake was fishing. But you chose to pretty much stay shallowly, and give us your perspective of this event and how it went down for you and why you chose to stay shallow.
Well, my main deal coming in there was, I would say I'm known for an offshore guy, but just not knowing the lake and the timing on the deep stuff is kind of what pushed me shallow. And don't get me wrong, I had a really good offshore practice. I just wasn't ever consistent on getting my numbers up. I mean, I caught 2 fish in the 9-pound range and, some, around 6 pound. And it was stuff that, it was in that zone in the canyons to Jackson Hill area where most of those guys were, but I just never had enough confidence that I could go catch 5 of them a day. And every time I'd go shallow, I'd get a big bite. And when I say big, I'm talking about a 2 3/4 to 4 1/4 is what I'm calling big.
Yeah. Solid way fish. Yeah.
I had a 7-pound bite frog and 2 in practice, but it was just consistent for me up there. I had one little zone, one little section, some drains of hydrilla that went into the pads, and there was a lot of fish in there. I mean, the second day of the tournament, I probably had 40 blow-ups. I just got the Sam Rayburn frog curse. I mean, all of them, but 2 of them missed it. I mean, I'm not even losing them; they're just missing it. But it was just a consistent thing for me. I knew people like Daryl and Albert and Chris Wilson, and the list goes on. Those guys know what piles have what, when to hit them, and what road. I went in a drain and fished it out. Thought I knew what I was doing. I saw combs come in behind me and catch one like first cast in practice. I was like, okay, I just need to go get on the bank.
Yeah.
Because I don't have the exact angles and whatnot. It was not a layup because I was around the right fish up there too, but it was just a consistency deal for me. One of those deals where you put a couple rods on the deck and you go fishing.
Yeah.
Now, Lee, on live, it showed you, of course, shallow and showed you fishing past, but you was fishing some thick cover. Kind of break down for us here, what exactly maybe you were looking for. And when I say thick, I mean, you were throwing that thing up in a hayfield up there.
Yeah, you really needed 80 in there. You needed a full of line. It was really thick pads. I mean, everybody's asking, well, did you throw a smaller frog? Did you flip? You can't.
Yeah.
It's too thick. But there was 2 things going on shallow for me. You had the fish, and I'm not going to say everything, but there was pads in beach and 5 fingers and stuff like that were easy accessible. You could throw across the whole pad field.
Right.
They're super thick, but I would have a lot more fish miss it there, and I think it's because they get a lot more pressure. Now, the fish were bigger, but a lot more missed it. And I kind of got in an area where there weren't many people fishing because there was just so much. There was so much area to cover, so many pads, and I just had little isolated areas that had either brim beds behind the pads, like up against the bank. There'd be a little bit of open water. There'd be brim beds in there, and there'd be fish.
Yeah.
Fish in there, and then I had some pads that had little depressions with them with hydrilla mixed in with the pads, and those were my real big fish were. But it was just, big rod, big line, big frog.
Lee, did you ever get on anything in the hydrilla, along with the frog, or even punching?
I punched a lot in practice in hydrilla and other areas, and I caught some good fish, but it wasn't ever consistent. I might catch a 3 or 4 pounder, but then it wasn't ever boom. I thought school like you can some certain times, and I caught a lot of little fish doing it. Now, my hydrilla that went into my pads, there were fish in those same drains right outside in front of my pads, and actually catch 3 of my keepers out of that the last day, the last hour, just because I didn't have anything going. So there was definitely a bite that going on too, for sure. I know a lot of guys were catching fish in little drains with isolated hydrilla patches that were just kind of scattered, throwing a worm, throwing a little swim bait, stuff like that.
Lee, has the fall migration, we're just a little bit early for that, aren't we? Is it starting to slowly develop? Are the shads starting to migrate up the creeks at all yet?
You're not quite there on Rayburn yet, in my mind, for sure. It was, the first day of the tournament was one of the hottest days I've ever fished.
Yeah.
It was hot. I was wanting to jump in the lake, but it's kind of crazy. I don't even know what today is. September 2nd or 3rd week of September, right?
September 14th.
Yeah, we're middle of September right now.
We're talking about there's still a ton of brim on beds at Rayburn right now. And I know it goes on all summer with the full moon, but, that's kind of a deal I keyed in on. There was brim in the pads when the sun got up, but, I was bombing some casts in practice, like back behind the pads, in nothing, in inches, and boom, 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 get blown up. And I, pulled in there to see what it was. And sure enough, just rows of honeycomb brim beds full of brim. So, it's pretty crazy that those brim are still on beds at this point in time. All my fish were brim eaters. There was a few little threadfin would come in the outside of the pads, but, just little bitty rats were chasing them. My big fish were eating big brim, and I had a 7-pounder just crushing, jumping out of the water, eating brim in the pads. The second day I could never get to eat. So there's some big ones in there.
Lee, was that your game plan, was to go shallow and tough it out? Or did you have a certain weight in your head maybe that, hey, if I get to this, I'm going to go out and at least try the piles? What was your game plan if it had worked out to perfection for you?
No, that's exactly what I had in my mind, because I honestly, and I was kind of doing what those other guys were, especially like Josh. I was catching my big ones on a swim bait on top of the brush piles.
Yeah.
And some great big ones, but in my head, because they caught them better than I thought they would. Honestly,
they caught them a lot better than a lot of stuff.
3
bags over,
yeah,
3 bags over 27 pounds. I can honestly say I did not see that coming.
Yeah,
and even those medium weights, I figured.
Right.
But the water was low, and low water helps. Shallow and deep, it concentrates fish. So I think that was a lot to do with it. But in my head, if I caught 14 to 18 pounds is what I thought I could do pretty not easy, but in a day in the pads, whether I catch it by 9 o'clock, 1 o'clock, and then so my deal in my head, and I did it the first day. I caught, whatever I caught, 16 and a half pounds, and I went out deep and threw the swim bait, but I never got bit on the way back.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
But that was my deal. If I got around 16, I was going to jump out there, and that second day, I just never got there to leave.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Lee, we got, one thing we want to get from you while we've got you before we let you go is a Lake Fork report, and Bob Seeley's coming up over there this coming weekend. A lot of people getting ready for that. A lot of our people that are watching this episode are Seeley guys. So give us a little breakdown. What's going on at Fork, and what do they need to do to maybe be able to compete over there?
Fork is actually fishing really good right now for the time of the year, and I'm really surprised looking back on the last 4 or 5 years at this point in time. But it's almost a little behind, but it's not because of the weather. I almost think it's because of the pressure that the lake got earlier in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody not being at work and being off with the virus and stuff. I think the fish they never got comfortable out there earlier in the summer, and they kind of just got busted up real bad, and they, not as many people are fishing this late in the summer. So I think those fish are, just now really getting settled down out there. A lot of guys are catching them really good offshore still,
mm-hmm.
and not all suspended. Now, there are a bunch suspended still, but there's a lot of, just for the tournament anglers, in my mind, that's what I tell all my, and I hate saying this because it's bad for me, but I hate when customers or people, give me spots for the Seeleys. I'm huge in the Seeleys on just go fishing.
Yeah.
Just go fishing.
Right.
Not spot deal is all that offshore great stuff just gets hammered and beat down and ends up becoming the worst stuff. And just go fishing.
Yeah, you're
there's a
fishing for one. You're not fishing for five.
And there's not many secret spots on Lake Fork. It's not a huge body of water like Rayburn or Toledo Bend. So a lot of those fish get hammered year around with all the guides that are over there and the guide services they have.
Right.
Everybody does a great job, but those fish are pressured.
You're fishing for fish under 16 inches and fish over 24 inches, one of the two.
Yep,
Yeah.
I agree.
Now,
I'm a big believer in those little ones like to live shallower, and I'm a big believer in the real giant like to live a little bit shallower too. They don't like that, 18 to 22 foot range like we usually fish on our slot fish option.
right.
So
Right.
there's a really good green hydrilla growing in certain areas of the lake. And if I was coming, I would just keep it super simple. Texas rig worm, little swim bait, top water, wacky worm, stuff like that. Fish that green hydrilla, fish wood point you see, and just keep it simple and just fit. All my buddies that just go and fish that don't have a clue, those are the guys that end up winning the money. But they're just, fishing any hard object you see with wood in a foot of water or 8 foot of water, or fishing a hydrilla drain or line or whatever it is, and just keeping it simple, not trying to be, Kevin Van Dam out there cranking this spot at 1 o'clock,
Yeah.
Right.
most of those really good deep spots, you're just catching slot fish on them. They're not going to help you either way. So I'd rather be up there plucking 150s, and then catch a 250, and then you might throw up there with a foot of water, catch a 10-pounder this time of year. So just keep it simple, guys, and fish whatever you're comfortable with. Stay south, north or south on the lake, and you're going to catch a lot of fish. They're biting pretty good right now, to be honest.
Yeah.
Being that they're biting pretty good right now, Lee, what's your prediction for the weekend? How many overs get caught?
Ooh, this is a 3-day tournament.
This one is a 3-day, Friday,
3
Saturday,
days.
Sunday.
Yeah.
I mean, are you looking at a couple overs a day? Are the big ones biting that good?
They're biting pretty good. I'm gonna say the first day, I bet 7 overs get caught.
Wow. Holy cow.
Like they're biting pretty good. And after that, so I'm gonna say a dozen overs through the 3 days.
Golly, that's been a while since the fall. The fall Sealy's on there has had that many overs caught. That's impressive.
Well, I do know this too, Lee. I was at Texoma this past weekend, and the water temperature dropped from 87 degrees to 78 degrees in 2 days.
Today is the first day it got cool. It's cool at my house in Longview, Texas right now. Like it feels good outside.
And it's supposed to be cool this weekend.
Yeah. So how much will that play a role, this water temperature dropping?
That's not going to be a big player. I mean, it feels good to us, but those fish aren't feeling it as much. The deal is the lake's just fishing pretty good right now compared to the past couple of Septembers.
Right.
I mean, I've been watching, not just me, and I'm on no information because I have an elite event there this fall, but I mean, I'm watching social media guys that I'm friends with. I mean, they're catching them good, big, offshore, shallow. I mean, people are catching them. Usually this time of year is a struggle. Kevin's been out there with me before, and I mean, it's a struggle sometimes just to get big. But right now they're biting pretty good.
Yeah.
Good deal.
All right.
Well, Lee, I appreciate you coming on, man. Congrats on the finish at Rayburn. I know that sets you really well in the points, and I got you another check. So anytime you can go get a check anywhere, that works. I know that. But and I appreciate the help on the Sealy. I know we got a bunch of listeners going to fish that event this weekend. So I appreciate your insight there and just coming on and being on with us.
All right, guys. I thank you.
All right. Lee Livesay. And Lee's one of the tour fishing pros that continues to make his mark, Kevin. Especially everybody from this region knows who he is, but he's starting to make his name even on a national level. He's had a lot of success, and I've heard some of the commentators on the he's with the elites, right?
Yeah, he's
with the elites. I've heard Zona and them talk about this is one of the up and coming guys.
Steve, there's no doubt. Look, I've been in the boat with Lee 2 or 3 times,
right?
Both on Fork. I mean, all times on Fork actually. And I told you this with Nick LeBrun. There's people and Jacob Porosnik's the same way. There's people when you get in the boat, you know instantly they've got it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
And Lee is one of those.
Yeah.
He's got it.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
can get on a body of water, never been there before.
Dissect
Look
it.
at the water,
Yeah.
look at the clarity, look at it and say, I'm gonna go catch them doing this.
Right.
And he goes and catches them doing that.
Right.
I mean, he is that good
At figuring out water.
figuring out water and how to catch them and going and doing it. He is no doubt going to be one of the best on the Elite Series in
Right.
the next few years.
Looking forward to watching him.